Earthbound by Artemis Greenleaf. Chapter 6: The Merrows. I didn't know ghosts could feel pain. As soon as the scepter touched me, it was like hot needles were sticking into me. Then I felt heavy and solid. After I plunged into the waves, something tapped me on the head. I put my hand up and felt something. A hat? Couldn't be. I started to pull the thing off when a bony hand pushed it back down onto my head, prying my fingers off it. I turned to see a desperately ugly man with small red-rimmed eyes and sharp green teeth. But that wasn't even the weird part. From the waist down he was a fish, and he was wearing a little red hat. Another one like him was holding a red cap and lurking near the surface. Connell splashed into the water nearby. The fishman crammed the hat he had been holding onto Connell's head. They pulled both of us down into the water, all the way to the seabed. Surely I would dissolve before they started to eat me. I couldn't believe my eyes. A little village sat on the seafloor. There was a town centre surrounded by small cottages thatched with seaweed. The fishman holding my wrist swam to a house with a green door and tugged me inside. The second one brought Connell with him, and they came in almost arm in arm. "Schuyler," said Connell. "These are friends of mine, Peder and Eamon. They're Merrows. They will truly help us to Clare Island." "Yes," replied the second Merrow. "Nickniven. She's a tricksy old thing. You'd do well to be dog wide of her, if you can. And make sure you keep the red hat on your head." Connell's voice inside my head, or what used to be my head, sounded as it always does. When the farm ghosts talk to me, it seems just like living people talking. But the Merrow, his voice flowed and swirled all around me. It was layered with sounds of the sea, waves crashing on the beach, seagulls, whale song. I didn't so much hear his words, but soak them up. "Thanks," I said, relieved that I wasn't going to dissolve in the ocean and that I was not on the Merrow's menu. But I was still confused. I was standing close to Connell, and I could see his hat was made of feathers. The hat? What does it do? Why do I need to wear it? "Ah," said the first Merrow with a sharp-toothed grin. "The magic hat of the Merrows, the Cohol and Druth. I'm Eamon, by the way." He shook my hand. Still holding my hand, he said, "The hat, you see, is keeping you intact down here." He let go of my hand. "If you were living, it would allow you to breathe. You can also see our village because of the thing. When you want to go back on land, just take it off your head. You aren't bound to it, as we are." "How do you mean?" His sharp teeth flashed again as his thin lips pulled back into a smile. He ran the tip of his tongue across his front teeth and back again. Leaning towards me, he said, "I suppose it's common knowledge. If a mortal should steal a Merrow's hat, while the Merrow is ashore, that mortal has power over the poor creature until such a time as the hat could be recovered. We cannot live in the sea without the Cohol and Druth. That's why those of us who are very clever always carry a spare one." He tapped the hat on my head and winked.
I expect Nick Nevin's spell will have worn off by now. She didn't mean for us to hold together, you know, Connell said. Off with your robe then, Skylar, he added as he pulled the white garment over his head with one hand and holding the red hat on with the other. I did the same, glad to be rid of the hateful shroud. The lovely daffodils, I supposed, were floating near the ferry landing. So is it really Granwal you're meeting up with? I haven't seen her in ages. Thought perhaps she'd given the whole haunting thing up, Peter said. He pulled out a sort of chair thing from the side of the table and sat down. It was made for someone with a fishtail instead of legs, that's for sure. The seat of it was smaller than a normal chair, then it sloped away towards the floor as a ramp. Not my auntie. Connell also pulled up a human chair, which didn't match any of the other furniture, and sat down. Had he forgotten I was standing right there? Well, you folk get bored of such things after a time. Peter had turned sideways in his chair and rummaged around on a shelf behind him. You must not know my auntie. She's never forgiven the Joyces for killing her husband and cheating her out of her rightful property. She harries them to this day. You know her well, then. Peter pulled out a rectangular box and set it on the table. I saw Eamon shaking his head. No, she was long dead before I was born. But nowadays we have a visit from time to time. It was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Skylar, said Eamon, holding out his hand for me to shake. I've still all my errands to do, so I'm off. Yes, I replied, fascinated by the clawed, webbed fingers. Connell and Pedir waved as Eamon disappeared out of the green door. A game of checkers would you have, Connell? They'll be looking for ye a while yet. Yeah, checkers. That'll be all right. Checkers? What was I going to do while they played checkers? As if in answer to my question, a Merrow girl swam into the room. At least I guess that's what she was. She was half fish, but she was as pretty as the men were ugly. If she had been human, I would have guessed she was about 16. But I don't know how human years translate to Merrow years. Her long red hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, and the ends floated out behind her. How are you, Kate? Asked Connell. Hey, Connell, who's this then? She asked, looking at me with eyes like green glass. I was glad I had no blood to rush to my cheeks to give me away. Why was it that she was the one naked and I was the one embarrassed? This is Skylar Ramsay. She's at the farm with us, Connell said. What brings you visiting the bottom of the sea then, Skylar Ramsay? Nick Niven, I answered. Janie Mac, Queen Dick. Before I could answer, she said, Come on, I'll show you round while me old man loses at checkers. I heard that, you Rossie, said Pedir with a wink. Kate just grinned as she and I went outside. The Merrows had seaweed growing in their gardens, like land folk might have shrubs. Sparkling white anemones waved thin tentacles at us from their muddy tubes in the lawns. Then I stopped dead. I'd never seen such a thing before. Perched on rocks, green anemones with orange centres stretched blue fingers out into the water. It was like someone had sprinkled emeralds, topaz, and sapphires all over the seafloor. I think the landfolk call these jewel anemones common as muck round here. I don't think she was gloating, just completely certain that her world was best. I didn't answer. What was there to say? What brings you and Connell so far afield? Surely not just to call on Queen Nick? I wanted to sound important, like our mission was a matter of life or death.
Too bad I didn't realise at the time that it was. I might have been more convincing. We've come to consult Granwell on Clare Island. We have a situation at home. Kate laughed.
What's that then? You're in need of sword fighting lessons.
No, Rodney Aldridge is coming, I replied, hoping I sounded dramatic and waiting for her to be astounded.
And who would he be then?
Of course, she wouldn't have a TV set underwater. He's on telly. He investigates haunted houses and tries to exorcise ghosts.
On telly? You mean those silly moving picture boxes that the fishermen have? Go on with you. You got your knickers in a twist over something like that. Surely it's all fake.
How can she scoff at me when she knows nothing about it? Well, a bit. But I've heard he makes right hashes of things. Even attracts parasites.
Parasites?
Kate made a face like she smelled something really bad.
You'll want to be wide of them. Really you do.
Yeah. Now I'd run out of things to say, so I just looked around as we walked. A spiky lawn of hedgehog sponge covered the garden of the cottage in front of me. A frilly feather star crept across it, looking for a good place to sit and catch food. I looked up and saw a huge shadowy fish shape far above us. Kate, what's that?
You've never seen a basking shark? Well, don't be a gibber. Come on then.
She started to swim up towards it. I followed her, not sure what to expect. As we got closer, I could see the thing must be 6 meters long, the size of a van more or less. It moved slowly in the water, its huge mouth wide open. Kate stopped just underneath the fish and put her hands up, touching the pale underside of the shark. Her fingers tickled its belly as it swam over her.
She's got some babbies in there. 5, I think.
The water around us throbbed with the chug, chug, chug of a boat engine.
Janie Mac, it's a fishing boat. If they see her...
They must have seen her. The chugs got closer together, as if the boat was moving faster, and I could hear men yelling. Earthbound by Artemis Greenleaf. This work is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 United States license. Environmental sound effects used in this podcast were provided by www.freesound.org. Please check artemisgreenleaf.com for details of specific samples used. If you'd like to leave a comment or learn more about the other projects in progress, please go to www.artemisgreenleaf.com.
Dandelion girl, watch her play on a summer's